the first thing I'll be doing is checking my wheels, and I'll be performing my air brake system inspection. The first test is the apply pressure test, and I'll be doing a safe start, making sure the brake is on and the transmission is in neutral. You guys can stand right here if you guys want.
Yeah.
Now I will turn on the engine to build air pressure to maximum capacity, and I will step on the accelerator to speed up the process. Alright, my governor has cut out at 125 psi. Now I will shut off my engine, turn the switch back on, release the parking brake, and wait for the needle to stabilize. And I will step on the brake pedal for 1 minute, and that minute I cannot lose more than 3 psi. My PSI is at 91 PSI. My minute starts now. Alright, my minute is over. I'm still at 91 PSI, which means I did not lose more than 3 PSI in that minute. Take your test. The next test is the low air warning test. I'll make sure my light and buzzer turns on between 55 and 75 PSI by stepping on the brake pedal. Alright, my light and buzzer came on at 70 psi, which is no lower than 55 and no higher than 75 psi. The next test is the spring brake pop out test. I'm going to make sure my parking brake pops out between 20 and 45 by pressing on the brake pedal. Alright. My parking brake has popped out at 29 psi, which is no lower than 20 and no higher than 45 psi. So it's a good test. The next test is the governor cutout test. I'll make sure I'll do a safe start, put my parking brake back on, it's already on, my transmission is in neutral, and I'll turn on the engine to build air pressure to maximum capacity again. It should not be no higher than 140 psi.
This is governor cutout, right?
Governor cutout. I'll step on the accelerator to speed up the process.
It's like a minute.
Alright, my needle has stopped moving at 122 psi, which is no higher than 140 psi, so it's a good test. The next test is the governor cut-in test. I will press the brake pedal, wait about 5 seconds to see if the needle starts rising. If it does not move, I'll repeat it again. It should not be no lower than 85 psi. 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000. My needle has not moved. I'll repeat it again. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000. Still has not moved. I'll repeat it again. 1, 1,000. Alright, my needle has started moving at 90 psi, which is no lower than 85 psi. So it's a good test. The next test is the brake test. By doing this, I'll open my door. I'll remove the chocks to test the brake. Careful right there. And by doing this, I have two parking brakes, which is the parking brake and the service brake. I'll be testing the parking brake first by putting it in gear. And I will let go of the service brake to test the parking brake to see if the bus moves. My vehicle did not move, that means the parking brake is working properly. Now I'll step on the brake pedal again, let go of the parking brake, and move the vehicle forward approximately 5 miles per hour to see if the brake pedal is working. Alright, my bus came to a complete stop. That means the parking brake is working properly. And I will put my parking brake back on. Transmission is in neutral. And with that, I have completed the air brake system inspection. Any questions?
Do you have to do the wheel then turn left or right?
Optional.
Huh?
That's optional if you want to describe that.
Okay.
Optional. Okay, public option. Any questions? Pretty good?
Good.
No questions?
No.
Alright.
I'm okay.
So now I will continue with the in-cab inspection. The way I do the in-cab, I start from left to right. Then I talk about my section right here, my seat. And I go from the window all the way around. So the first thing I have is my fuse box. I'm making sure it's not cracked or broken. I'm making sure all my fuses are well secured in the box. They are working properly and ready for use. I have my parking brake. I'm making sure it's not cracked or broken. It is properly mounted to the bus. I'm checking that the rubber seal is not ripped or torn. That could cause an air leak. I have my gearbox. I'm making sure it's not cracked or broken. It is properly mounted. The buttons are working properly, so the vehicle can move forward and backwards. I have my switch for the bus to turn on, the electrical switch, and the ignition switch or button. Make sure it's not cracked or broken. It is properly mounted and it's working properly. The next thing I have is my four-way flashers, making sure my emergency lights are working properly. The button is not cracked or broken, and it is properly secured on the bus. The next thing I have is my gauge panel. Make sure it's not cracked or broken. It's properly mounted. I'm making sure the needle is not cracked or broken. It's working properly. I also have my left signal. I'm making sure it turns on and off. I have my right signal. I'm making sure it turns on and off. I also have my low beams, which is right now, it's on. And I have my high beams. I'm making sure it's working properly. I also have an ABS light. If the ABS light is on, that means I have a problem with my ABS. If the light is off, that means it's working properly. I have my air gauge. I'm making sure it's not cracked or broken. The needle is not cracked or broken. It's properly mounted and it's working properly. I also have my horn. I'm making sure it's not cracked or broken. It is properly mounted and it's working properly. I'm checking that my door opens and closes. My buttons are not cracked or broken. They're properly secured on the bus. They are working properly. I have my pedals. I'm making sure they're not cracked or broken. They are properly mounted. Making sure there's no trash or bottles underneath the pedals that could obstruct me from using them. Now moving on to my seat. Make sure the seat goes back and forth. Make sure it's is properly mounted, is not cracked or broken, or any nuts or bolts missing. I have my 3 triangle reflectors, making sure it's not cracked or broken. They're properly secured in the box. They're amber and red in color. I have my seatbelt.
Seatbelt.
I thought it was working, but okay. I'll let GSF know to fix it. Alright, so I have my seatbelt. I'm making sure